Well, we can speak now to the founder of the International Network for Aid, Relief and Assistance, Arwa Damon. Thanks so much for being with us once again, Arwa. Look, we're seeing it there. It looks pretty much like all supplies inside Gaza have been used up. Not only are people being bombed and blocked, they're now being left to starve. But what is the latest you are hearing and seeing on the ground with the people you work with in Gaza?
Well, at INARA, we have a number of programs that are actually quite focused on trying to get food to the population. But just like everybody else, right now we're in a situation where we're struggling to do that. People keep asking me to try to describe what the situation in Gaza is like right now, and that's impossible. In fact, it always has been. Gaza is a killing field. And when we say Gaza is a killing field, we're not just talking about death coming from bombs or bullets. We're talking about death coming from a lack of food, from the illnesses and the way that diseases can ravage a body that is malnourished or one that is trying to heal from an infection. The situation right now is such that the World Food Program has delivered the last of its stocks to the community kitchens that it provides support for. We at INARA, in the hot meals that we're delivering, we ran out of stock for what we're trying to provide for southern and central Gaza. Just in the last 24 hours, we still have a bit more to be able to deliver to communities that we're serving in Gaza City and in the northern part of the Strip. And we also need to point out to everyone that when we say hot meals right now, we're not really talking about a meal. We're not really talking about something that is nutritious. What we're really talking about is essentially just rice, because that is all that has been left in Gaza for these community kitchens to be able to cook with. The idea of being able to add on something like vegetables, even if it's canned vegetables, that ended a long time ago. Fresh vegetables are essentially pretty much unavailable aside from what Gaza is able to domestically produce, and extraordinarily expensive. Our teams, when they go around distributing basically these plates of rice, say that the first thing that the children ask them is there chicken or meat on the rice? When are you going to be able to bring in chicken or meat? And of course, neither we nor the team on the ground have an answer to that question, not as long as the border remains closed like this.
Indeed, the border's closed for 2 months now. And you mentioned there, Gaza's home-produced vegetables. I believe, the Israeli military offensive has not only destroyed much of the farmland there, but also cordoned off many of the farms into now military zones, so people can't actually go and get any produce.
Yeah, roughly 60% of Gaza right now is either a no-go zone or is under some sort of evacuation order. So just to give you an idea, I think it was roughly 10 days ago, our team managed to do a fresh vegetable distribution, keeping in mind that the community that we were able to serve is, looking at the numbers, fairly small. And also that what we were providing them, which was, again, what was homegrown, so very limited in terms of diversity, was only enough to last a family for about 2 days, and it cost $80 per food parcel. So again, these prices are absolutely astronomical. And the other issue with the lack of, food is that it's not just food that's missing. It's even if a family somehow miraculously has something that they can cook, fuel. What do you actually cook with? Cooking gas is not available. People are burning wood. They're burning whatever it is that they're able to get their hands on. And then adding to all of that, the lack of access to water. How are people even able to wash? They're trying to, wash up using a small little piece of soap that maybe they secured a long time ago and are melting, or they're using a combination of sand and salt. But then you have the spread of infectious diseases that are running rampant, especially among children. You have the spread of skin diseases, skin rashes. I mean, it's compounded exacerbation of a campaign that is very deliberately being implemented to ensure an increased level of unimaginable suffering among the population there.
We're seeing it, we're hearing it, and it is yet so hard to fathom that this is happening and nobody really reacting from the international community. I mean, what are you seeing on that front?
I mean, that's sort of the crux of all of this, is how is this able to happen? We know exactly what has been taking place in Gaza for the last 18 plus months. We know exactly who it is who holds control of access to Gaza, and that is Israel. Israel controls every single crossing point in and out of the Gaza Strip, and yet we somehow have accepted that global leaders, including the leadership of the United States, seem to be quite okay with the idea that a war crime not only is being committed, and that is the war crime of collective punishment and of denying access of humanitarian aid, but also being discussed. We have heard numerous senior officials, both among the Israeli government and the US government, casually and callously, talking about how, yes, Gaza should be starved, talking about how, yes, it's okay to punish the entire civilian population and use this as some sort of a pressure point tool to try to force Hamas into some sort of a position that at this stage, it's quite clear Hamas doesn't necessarily seem like it wants to accept. And so there's this greatly concerning, on a different level, complete and total erosion of any sort of moral code, of any sort of adherence to what was meant to be, the rules of war that were specifically developed to prevent this sort of a thing from taking place. And I think we're going to have to collectively ask ourselves a lot of questions when the day comes that this is over. I was messaging with one of our physical therapists who works in Gaza City, because we have a medical field clinic up there. And he flat out was asking me, like, does the outside world really know and understand what is happening to us? And if they do know and understand, why? How is it that we have been allowed to suffer like this? Are our lives really worth so little? And I don't know what to respond to him.
Where do you see this going, Arwa, at this stage?
It really depends, I think, on the willingness of key players. You obviously have a lot of voices in Israel who are calling for and trying to put pressure on the Israeli government to actually do a deal, no matter what the deal is, with Hamas, to get the hostages released. You also have, the United States, that never really used any of the sort of pressure points or leverage it might have with Israel, which mainly focuses around shutting off the weapons tap. But it does not seem as if, especially this administration, but frankly, neither the Biden administration, were willing to do what it takes. And then you also have, Arab countries, countries that have ties with Israel, like the Emirates, who could potentially try to use pressure points. But we're really seeing absolutely no will or desire to want to do that. And frankly, I'm terrified that we are heading towards the worst case scenario, which is the death of Gaza and of anyone who remains in it, because people cannot survive like this. It's not a joke when we say supplies are running out. We're not joking about this. Israel continues to dismiss this claim, saying that there's plenty of food in Gaza. That is categorically untrue. And right now, we see it, we hear it from the people we're talking to on the ground. Even the staff of international organizations are living through the same circumstances. We know what is taking place right there. And unless something alters in the dynamics that are governing what is happening in Gaza, it's very hard to see how it is that the death of everyone, this slow, agonizing death, is not going to end up being what ultimately takes place.
Arwa Damon, thanks so much for taking time out to speak to us here on France 24. Arwa Damon there, founder of the International Network for Aid, Relief and Assistance, bringing us a clear picture of what is currently happening